Hola y bienvenido a la podcast de los tres amigos, Game Week 27.
One for each other and all for one. The three brave amigos are we. Brother to brother and everyone, a brave amigo. Wherever they need us, our destinies lead us. Amigos, we're always together.
I'm FPL Marple and I'm joined on tonight's show by my amigo Mars, as well as honorary amigos and regulars from our fan few days, Peter Blake and the FPL Stag. Welcome to sunny Mexico, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
It's great to be here.
Welcome anyway, fellas, and it's great to have you on. Tell me, Stag, you're over in sunny Spain at the moment, but how did Game Week 26 treat you, and how are you keeping?
I'm great, thanks. It's great to be back and delighted to be here on the Three Amigos now. It was snowing here in Madrid yesterday, actually. Real Madrid's training was cancelled, so Ronaldo got his birthday off, so it was a funny old week. But in FPL terms, no, things are going all right. I've had a few variable weeks. I broke into the top 100k 2 weeks ago, and I've just kind of slid back a little bit to 119k after what was an apocalyptic Game Week 26 where I got just 44 points, which I know was actually a pretty decent score in the overall scheme of things, but still. My transfer for that week was I got rid of Heung-min Son and I brought in Alexis. I captained him as well. Wasn't actually a bad decision really when you look at it, but just unfortunately it didn't manifest itself in FPL points the way I'd liked it to. So overall things are going pretty well, decent platform and decent position for the blank game weeks and double game weeks to come.
How about yourself, Pete? You flying high?
No, pretty similar to Stag actually, to be fair. I'm 136,000 overall, so like it's all relative, I suppose, isn't it? I know people who are up at down to like 2.5 million. So you're right, it's a decent platform to build on. Probably not going to get top 10k this year now, but I can probably still sneak into the top 50. Game Week 26 was 40 points, so yeah, slightly worse than Stag. Again, Mo Salah was the only one who delivered anything. Captain Aguero did nothing. Second highest scorer on my team was Milivojevic, who was my second substitute and didn't come on, so that was annoying. Apart from that, it's just a sea of 1, 2s and 3s and 0 in the case of Alonso as well. So, yeah. Could be an awful lot worse, but it could have been better as well.
Oh, definitely, yeah. But it's funny because if anyone else, if Mars was saying the line that you just said there when you said, people who are like in the 2.5 millions, then I would have known that he was having a jab at me. But you're far too polite for that, Pete. So I know you weren't even trying to have a jab, but which makes it even worse.
Yeah, to be fair, John, I did forget that you were down there.
Yeah.
Down there.
I am down there in the basement.
If I had known, it definitely would have been a dig.
To be honest with you, this season I've just actually started laughing at it. I don't even take any notice. My game week this week was I had a wonderful 31 points, believe it or not. You're probably wondering how on earth you actually managed to have that low, but yeah, Alonso not doing anything. Basically, Mkhitaryan was the only one who did anything for me, and for the first time ever, I actually have 3 zeros in my lineup, and there were players that played Kenny, Cresswell, and Pickford. So a marvelous game week 26 for me, but tell me, Mars, you pile on the pain. Tell me how well you got on, because I know you were crying during the game week, thinking that for once that you weren't going to have the best game week between myself, Dale, and yourself. How'd you get on?
Yeah, to be honest, I would struggle to lose to 31 even with a bad game week. Not actually highest scorer out of the lot here, 48 points. Nothing to shout home about, but can't complain. My Alonso sub got me a big fat nice 0, Kenny. Salah, Shaqiri was my second highest scorer with 8 points, and the rest is nothing really to talk much about. I was debating between captaining Aguero or Wilson, or most week. As soon as I brought Wilson on, the captain armband was on him, and then I thought, no, can't do it. I remember Troy Deeney and what he did to me last season. I thought, no, can't do it. And then when Aguero blanked, I was like, I should have done it. And then Wilson did nothing either. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's one of those one game week I would captain Salah and he'll probably do nothing. But hey ho.
And we'll move on to the next section of the show when we can forget all about game week 26. Mars, you generally every single week you have a big talking point of the week. What's your talking point for game week 27?
Well, there can only be one talking point this week, and it's the big news for Daddy to be our third amigo, Dale, with the great news. I've already told him that the baby's getting a Liverpool top, and it's going to be either called Mo Aguero or Kunsala.
Congratulations, Dale. We're delighted for you. It's a good talking point of the week. A bit different than our usual complaining about the scoring system or stuff like that, Mars. We're going to move on to some of the topics we're all talking about, of course, ahead of game week 27. Pete, I know we were talking before the pod and we were talking about the game week 20 or game week 31 plans and the chip deployments and stuff like that. I think you have a bit of a working theory going on. Have you come to any conclusions from all your thinking?
Not exactly just yet, but I'm certainly toying with the idea of using the free hits in 31 rather than the game week 35. And I know it's common, it's accepted wisdom, I suppose, at the moment that you go for game week 35 because you've got a blank in 30, you've got a double game week in 34, then a blank in 35, and then a double game week in 37. So it means you can navigate it quite easily, which I do sort of agree with. But game week, I keep looking at game week 31, and it's just scaring the life out of me because if everything happens as we think it's going to happen, you're only going to have 8 available teams, assuming all the teams we think who are going to qualify for the FA Cup do qualify. And looking through those teams, it just looks horrific. So you've got, Liverpool, which is fine, treble up on them, no problem at all. You've got Bournemouth, assuming West Brom failed to beat Southampton. Yeah, okay, probably 2 players there. Wilson, Ibe probably as well. I think Charlie Daniels is potentially an option in there as well. Of the other teams, though, you've got, you've got Everton. I think Walcott's probably an option there. Stoke, I don't fancy at all. A lot of people are talking about Shaqiri, but they've only scored 3 goals in their last 6. I'm not going near them. Watford had a good result last night. I think they're potentially acceptable there, but they're playing Liverpool in that game week 31. And bearing in mind last season they lost 6-1 to Liverpool when they played away. So I may steer clear of them as well. You got Crystal Palace, who've got a shocking run of fixtures in amongst all that. Huddersfield have only scored 1 goal in the last 6 games, and they've conceded 14. I'm not going anywhere near them. West Brom are bottom of the table, and there's honestly no options there alike either. So I'm looking at a blank game week 31 and thinking, right, I've probably got 6 players who I can bring in for that. 3 Liverpool, 2 Bournemouth, and Walcott as well. So assuming you want to get out 11 players, and this is a big if at this point, but assuming you want to get out 11 players, you've then got to try and bring in 5 other rubbish players in before that deadline. So that's not just polluting game week 31, that's polluting everything before that and probably a week after that as well for your wild card, which I just don't fancy. And I think maybe free hits on 31 could work. Because then if you look at game week 35, because it's the semi-finals of the FA Cup, you're probably going to have 12 teams to choose from. Now let's make the assumption that the blanks are going to be Man City, Man United, Tottenham and Chelsea, because those are the 4 favourites for the Cup and 4 favourites to reach the semi-finals at this point. So that's also going to affect Swansea, Brighton, Huddersfield and Bournemouth. Okay, fair enough, you can probably deal with that. So you've got 12 other teams then to get players in for on blank game week 35. And they're going to include Arsenal. There's going to include, Liverpool probably going to be included in. Liverpool will be included in there as well. You've got Leicester, who've got some decent options. You've got Burnley, who've got some decent options as well. Southampton are starting to find a bit of form at the moment, potentially. So there's definitely options there. And if you engineer your wild card well enough, you can get a lot of double game week players, and you can probably then get out, I reckon, from my calculations, I can get out 9 blank game week players, assuming I've got 7 players from Man City, Man United, Tottenham and Chelsea who are going to be rested in that week. So you get a double game week of maximum efficiency. You've then got 9 blank game week players and then another double game week a couple of weeks later as well. And then you free hit in 31. So you can put out 11 players. Now they may not be very good players, but most people are probably only going into that game week with 6-7 players. And those who've got more than that are going to be bringing in all these players before and afterwards, so they're going to be weakening their squads full time. So it's a bit of a working theory at the moment. I haven't fully worked it out. I kind of want to see exactly what happens with the blank game weeks, but I think a lot of what I'm seeing on Twitter is people just absolutely nailed down, free hit him game week 35 because it sits between two doubles and it absolutely makes sense. But I'm just looking at the fixtures around them, and I'm just and who's playing in that time. And I think you can engineer a scenario where you free hit in 31 and you come off quite nicely at the end of it, I think, as well.
So, no, I really like it. It's always good to have an alternative idea. And what we've always said on the pod, that there's no one way. But let me just, just talking about the teams that you went, I actually looked at their fixtures. So the teams that we already know that are blanking in week 31, because I'm still leaning towards a free hit in 35, right? So Everton have got Palace at home, Watford away, Burnley away, Brighton at home. And then the week after, the blank, so I've counted out, City at home. Now, Palace, Watford, Burnley, Brighton. That's not a bad run. And you could even argue that you can bring in, you said one, maybe even two, you could bring in Pickford or a defender. I know Everton just got absolutely smashed by Arsenal. But
Everton were dire against Arsenal. I mean, that defence was all over the place. So,
but I can't, Sam Allardyce won't allow for that to happen again. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win all of those games, but I would imagine they'll be a lot tighter, and also they will be angry and they want to come back stronger. So I don't think that's a bad run, right? Now the other angle of that from Everton is, so Allardyce has openly said the season's a write-off. So there is potential at this point for Everton just to start experimenting. They can't afford
the youngsters. They're not quite safe yet.
No. If you look at it, they're not safe. I think once he's safe, then I agree with you. I think so. In the later game weeks, there might be more rotation. Then you look at Watford. Watford have got West Ham away. They're not been that great. Everton at home. So again, Watford at home can be quite strong. West Brom at home again, and then you've got Arsenal away and Liverpool at home. Now it just depends which Liverpool turn up. And then you've got Bournemouth at home after. So again, I don't think that's the worst run. And we've just seen what Watford could do to what they did to Chelsea. And, again, I'm not... Delafeu looks like a good option to call. The good thing about Watford players is they're all quite cheap. I've got Mariappa and he started playing again, so I can't complain. He got me 8 points in the last 2 games. If you look at Stoke have got Brighton at home, Leicester away, Southampton away, City home, Everton home, and then after the blank game week, they've got Arsenal away. So, again, Brighton home, Southampton away, Everton home. So, it's Stoke. Like you said, I agree with you. No disrespect meant to Stoke, but I've got Shaqiri. I'll stick with him. They do have some other cheap players. Do I want to double up? Maybe for one game week, if I'm going to use a free hit, the wild card the game week after, I might consider doubling up on a couple of them. So Huddersfield are most likely, I reckon, will lose to United. They're drawing now, I think, and they probably lose to United. Let's assume they will. You've got Bournemouth at home. You don't know what. Again, Bournemouth away, Huddersfield at home, West Bromwich away. Then you've got Spurs away, Swansea at home, Palace at home, Newcastle away. Those last 3 are not that bad. Again, I agree with you. Huddersfield, I'm not going to go and buy 3 players from Huddersfield. Palace actually, as you said, have got the worst run. Got Everton away, Spurs at home, United at home, Chelsea away, and then Huddersfield and Liverpool away. So they're probably the worst, I would say, out of the lot. What I'm trying to say is, if you do want to save the free hit between now and game week 31, you might be able to bring, 4 or 5 of these players, cheap players as well. So you can start downgrading slowly. Your Lingard, your I don't know if people are getting annoyed with Alonso. I wouldn't, and then start just slowly building, especially if you're going to wild card the game week after.
Yeah, I do take what you're saying. I think their fixtures are. There's a mixed bag in there. I think, like say, Palace total write-off in terms of their fixtures. Don't go near them. Watford did have a good result last night, which does colour things a little bit, I think. But if you look at the form table right over the last 6. I'm on whoscored.com right now. I'm looking at Premier League form table last 6. Position 15 downwards. It's Watford, West Brom, Stoke, Everton, Burnley, and Huddersfield. Now, 5 of those 6 in the bottom 6 are teams we've just mentioned there. These are teams that are in no kind of form whatsoever, and that's what worries me about this. There is potentially some options within there. Again, I like Walcott. I think if you've got Shaqiri, I think hold him. I think that's absolutely fine, but I'm not going to be bringing him in for it. I think the only 2 teams that look a bit any decent amongst the 8 that are going to be playing in blank game week 31, I think are Bournemouth and Liverpool. Bournemouth are actually top of the form table, actually, incidentally, which I think is quite interesting. But yeah, so you're right. The fixtures there potentially might work in your favour, but these are teams that are sliding, and they're not in good form. Watford aside at this point, Watford may have they're definitely thrown a spanner in the works there with dismantling Chelsea last night. But
I'll come in kind of briefly on this one just to give my 2 cents. I think Peter used an absolutely brilliant word there with pollute when he talked about bringing these players into his teams. Like it summarizes it so perfectly, Peter. And you said the word pollute, and immediately what flashed through my mind was Alvaro Negredo during that double game week last season. And the way the groupthink of Twitter and the community pushed us all in the direction of doing this stupid move in hindsight. We were watching the second game just knowing that this was the stupidest decision we'd ever made.
I captained him.
Did I triple captain him? I think I may have. I don't remember. Let's not talk about it. It went poorly regardless. But what I'm trying to get at here is that basically I've been kind of looking at the same idea as you are, Peter. Well, I hadn't quite thought it through as clearly as that. It all does kind of stack up towards your argument, and I think I'd be more towards yours purely because, as you point out, we're going to lose, did you say 8 teams it was with the FA Cup semi-finals? Of course, the 4 playing in the semi-finals plus their opponents. So you are looking at a much easier game week to plan for with much better teams to pick into. And I think even now as well, you're going to have the teams who are on the beach at that point too, who that even crap teams are going to do well against. I can't tell who's going to be this season because there's 10 teams who could be relegated right now. But last season it could be like Pulis's West Brom, who just completely gave up when they hit 40 points around March. I think things are going to become an awful lot clearer. So I would actually be a big proponent of the free hit in game week 31 as well.
I mean, blank game week 35, what you just mentioned there, Stag, you're talking about teams on the beach. The other thing to consider is if it is the big 4, which we assume are going to be in the semi-finals, assuming they don't get each other in the quarter-finals, Man City, Man United, Tottenham, Chelsea. By blank game week 35, Chelsea are going to have won the league. Man City are going to have won the league. So they're going to be focused on Champions League, going to be focused on the FA Cup. They're not going to be focused on the league. So realistically, you probably only want one of their players in there anyway at that point. But maybe not even that. It depends how it all starts working out. Tottenham's a problem. I think you're going to want to keep some Tottenham players and keep them on the bench. Chelsea are in free fall. God knows where they're going to be at that point. Man United, you probably want a couple of players from there as well. But the other teams, Swansea, Brighton, Huddersfield, Bournemouth, I think if you go into a wild card thinking I can't have any player from Swansea, Brighton, Huddersfield or Bournemouth, I don't think that's the end of the world. I think you can engineer a scenario around that quite comfortably. So you don't need any of those players either.
They are enablers though, to get you to help you get the big boys.
Yeah, but if you're going to do that, you may as well go for teams that have got at least one double and also a single game week in 35. So Burnley are an enabler. West Ham are going to be an enabler. Even Southampton have got cheap defenders in there. Newcastle, Leicester.
By the way, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I'm just trying to put both arguments down. And also,
I'm almost trying to convince myself here as well. I'm not convinced of this yet. To be fair, I'm still in between. I want to make sure, because I always feel that I waste my bench boost, for example. I always feel that I waste it because I'm holding it till the end and I'm never satisfied with it. And I've always thought sometimes people play it in a non-double game week and actually score a lot more, but I know it's luck. But and I'm just trying this out. All I want out of this season now, I'm about 126. So, okay, just like you, I'll probably, maybe 10K is out of the question, maybe not, I don't know. But I want to use the chips to maximize, at least in my mini league, and get as high as possible. So I'm kind of determined not to waste them now that I've said that.
on a podcast, I probably will waste them. One point to mention. I think credit to Ben Crellin again, because he mentions that the quarterfinal draw is Monday the 19th, which is not next game week, the game week after. If the top 6 teams are playing against each other, then absolutely free hit becomes an option for 31, because you're going to have more teams knocked out in 35 if the top 6 come up against each other. So, you've got one more game week, which is Feb the 10th, and then the week after that, we've got then it's the draw, so or maybe 2 game weeks. Then you will know the quarterfinal lineup. And that could help you decide.
Absolutely. I wouldn't advocate doing anything at this point without knowing a little bit more about the fixtures that are coming up. Certainly looking at the next round draw in the FA Cup, because again, a lot of what I'm theorising here is based on a semi-final of Man City, Man United, Tottenham and Chelsea. Now, if in the quarterfinals Man United play Man City and Tottenham play Chelsea, well, that's that theory gone, because there's going to be some other teams who are in the semi-finals, and there's going to be different blank permutations. And actually, at that point, if you've got a Man City, and let's say we've got Man City and Tottenham going into the single game weeks without a blank, then that's a whole different ballgame. That's an entirely different conversation, I think. So you're right, definitely wait and see.
And we'll have yourself and Ben back on the pod in the same game week, Pete, and that'll be a quality one. Stag, they're a bit of a positive mess at the moment, with Conte's future continuously up in the air. With only Hazard coming away from Vicarage Road with any credit and points, how do you think managers should be looking at any of their Blues players?
Right, yeah. So I'm going to start off with just 2 interesting points I saw on Reddit or Twitter today, and it was, one of them was pointing out that both Andre Villas-Boas and Roberto Di Matteo were sacked from when they were in the Chelsea role after a loss to West Brom. No prizes for guessing who Chelsea play this weekend. And then the other one is that Antonio Conte has the joint best win rate of any Premier League manager who's played a minimum of 5 games. That's joint with Pep Guardiola. So what we're whilst everything looks bad and what media reports suggest that Conte has very, very little time left to run, we're still not looking at a failed manager. And but that said, anyone who looked at any of the Watford game last night saw a team that didn't look like they were playing for their manager anymore. Like Bakayoko especially was particularly farcical in the time that he was on the pitch. So kind of going through the Chelsea team, really, Alonso is obviously the only one that we're going to really talk about amongst the defenders, because all the rest of them, you just can't trust them to keep clean sheets at the moment. So the loss to Bournemouth, so we're talking 2 game weeks ago, was the first time that Alonso had actually blanked in 8 matches without that he'd got a return of some kind or another, be that a clean sheet, an assist or a goal. So the fact that kind of people are talking about really dumping him en masse after just 2 games off, I think it's a bit premature, to be honest. I won't be getting him in, but the idea of dumping him ahead of a game away to West Brom, I think it's a bit much. That said, whilst he's still viable while Conte is in the job, if Chelsea bring in a new manager and they bring a completely changed formation or just don't favour Alonso himself, things could change very, very quickly. So it's kind of watch this space really with that, isn't it? As for other Chelsea defenders, look, their solidity hasn't been lost overnight, but that said, it hasn't looked good. They've still kept 13 clean sheets this season, but they have poor form. They're playing West Brom next, then it's Man United away, and then it's Man City away, and they're likely to blank in blank game week 31 because they just need to be hauled to blank then. So if you had another Chelsea defender, if you're doubled up, let's say right now, I would definitely say get rid of your double, but keep your Alonso. As for the rest of their team, looking at the midfield, they only had 3 shots on target against Watford, and all of those came in the last 10 minutes. They were shambolic. It just wasn't good at all. They've had 2 wins in 10 games so far in 2018. So why would you bother holding on to them, really? Conte himself has actually given the whole entire squad a 3-day rest to try and change something, just to possibly hoping that fatigue is what's actually wrong with them. I think it might be time for you to give their players a rest from your own squad as well. Hazard himself, he's too expensive to hold just for a moment of magic like he produced against Watford. And when you consider the whole entire form around him of the team, like he's not going to provide many assists with what we're looking at right now, unless Giroud maybe starts coming forward. So unless Chelsea get a new manager, you're talking about holding Alonso and pretty much selling everything else.
Yeah, as you said there, when I heard that Conte had given the players a 3-day break, my first thought was it sounds like a fella whose wife wants to leave him, but he just basically says, listen, just go for a weekend away for yourself, have a rest, come back and we'll talk when you come back. That's what it's like. It's like he's up there, she's made her decision. Hazard and these lads, they're not playing for him, like.
That's a very good analogy, in fairness. Very good.
And but he definitely lost them. I mean, I don't know, Bakayoko probably is the only one who was actually playing for him, because it's just that he's not good at football, and he was just that bad. But the whole team just seems to be they don't seem to be playing for him as much as Conte. I actually really like Conte, and it's not that easy for me to say that about a Chelsea manager, but Conte, I'm surprised at the way it's gone there. But having said that, with Abramovich as an owner, sometimes I don't think any Chelsea manager particularly is going to last long in the job. But thanks a million, Stag, for giving us the Chelsea rundown. I'd agree on that. Alonso is one I'll keep, but I wouldn't buy him in if it was a thing that I didn't own him. Mars, we'll move on to the other London club, Arsenal, who Mkhitaryan and Boomerang were on fire against Everton. But you're going to tell us just how must own are they, and which highly owned players should managers be selling for them?
Well, I don't think they must own at all. I think if you want to have differentials, you can certainly bring them in. But let's look at their fixtures. They've got Spurs away, London derby, City at home in the next two. You could argue they could get zero points. There could be loads of goals. There's normally goals in the derby. The City game hopefully will be open. So, those two games are unpredictable, but either thing can happen. They could lose both or be high scoring games. Then they've got Brighton away, Watford at home, and then a blank, unless Leicester lose to Sheffield United. So I don't think they're the easiest of fixtures, which is why I would say they are not must-owns unless you're chasing. I would say Mkhitaryan is more of a must-own than Boomerang, just because of his price, and he's easier to get. If you look at who Boomerang is competing with, you've got Kane, Firmino, maybe Aguero. So you could, if you have Aguero, downgrade. But if you have Firmino, why would you sell him? I know he blanked against Spurs, but he can do anything. Liverpool don't have a blank, and Liverpool attacking wise are pretty impressive. But Mkhitaryan, you could, right, if you're fed up of, if you have money in the bank and you've got Lingard, for example, you could upgrade. If you're worried about City and you can't forgive Sterling for his miss, you can swap him with that. Or what you can do is like a Lingard and a Shaqiri, or a Lingard, two average mids. You get Mkhitaryan and a 5 million midfielder like a Decore from Watford who's not blanking, or just go cheap plus Mkhitaryan. So there are quite a few options. But I wouldn't go decimating your team just to bring those two in. Boomerang scored once against Everton. I thought Mkhitaryan was very impressive, and as we said before on the pod, he will cherish this attacking, free attacking mentality, and he doesn't have to worry about defending at Arsenal. And I think that will help him, and he will get a lot of assists. Boomerang still for me on the watch list. And
tell me one thing, that when I was looking actually through the Arsenal players, Ramsey, of course, was great against Everton as well, and he's nearly $1 million cheaper than Mkhitaryan. Which one, if price is no object and that 1 million was basically sitting there in people's accounts, which one of the two guys would you go for? Ramsey, who's probably more of a goal threat, and Mkhitaryan, who's definitely more of an assist threat?
I think Stag will recall the episode that I cried and sang that I want Ramsey back no matter what. he did, and no matter what I said, yeah.
He's still going to council.
Yeah, that did occur. Yeah, that did occur.
There's only one choice out of these two for me, and it will be Ramsey. For exactly what you said, he's more of a goal threat, where I think Mkhitaryan will be an assist man. And the way, again, don't just go by one game. Ramsey probably won't get another hat-trick, but he has scored a lot before his injury, and he does seem to run, get into the box and go ahead of the strikers sometimes. And he loves that role. So to save the money and spend somewhere else, absolutely, between the two, I would go for Ramsey.
And tell us, lads, of the four of us here on the pod, who, let us draw a poll, basically, who has Mkhitaryan or Ramsey? Does Peter, have you got either of the two guys?
I don't have any Arsenal players, actually.
I'm also
and is that
Arsenal.
a thing you're going to... You have no Arsenal either? And who
Arsenal
are you...
is,
And who would you be remedying? Would you be going Ramsey or Mkhitaryan, or are you going to leave both of them off?
I don't know.
The tough question. I know that it is
a really
tough.
tough question.
I've had Mkhitaryan. I got him in as soon as the transfer went through, but for Arnautovic, and it was the only good move in the last couple of game weeks for me. But yeah,
I think the thing about Ramsey, the thing I really like about Ramsey is that he's had the whole season really where I think he's looked pretty good. He's looked very attacking. He is obviously coming off the back of a hat-trick, but even before that, he's the one making the charges into the box. And he's looked a threat pretty much all season. Mkhitaryan's come in and had one good game, but he spent most of the rest of the season on United's bench, being left out in the cold. So how much of the momentum is going to be with Ramsey over Mkhitaryan is potentially a question mark. Of course, Mkhitaryan's now got something to prove, and psychologically that might have a massive impact as well. I'd probably go for Mkhitaryan, just about, but
like for me on paper it's Mkhitaryan, but with Arsenal presumably blanking at least in game week 31, and with Spurs and Man City coming up next, that's why I steered clear of them initially. Look, Ramsey's looked brilliant all season. He really has. He's had a very good season, and obviously a hat-trick last weekend is going to colour all of our visions when we look at him. But you have to remember as well that Mkhitaryan scored a hat-trick of assists. So it was an impressive performance from him as well. Look, as Peter says, there is momentum on Ramsey's side compared to Mkhitaryan, but then you have that psychological thing. It's such a 50-50 decision, which I think budgets are probably going to decide more than anything. And I would say Ramsey.
Exactly, yeah. No, I completely agree. I think either of them will be good. I do think that I agree with Stag, and as I mentioned, they do have two tough games, but both games could easily be high-scoring games. Now, don't forget that Arsenal will be going all out to get fourth place. They are out of the cup. They have the Europa, which they will play their second string until probably the final or semis. So they really, and they're quite far behind, so they have to play the strongest team. Now, they've got one cup final coming up, and then that's it. The rest of that is the league and the Europa. So will I be getting Arsenal players in? Absolutely. Maybe after the blank game week.
I think I'll have to revise my answer, actually. I think I'd probably go for Ramsey over Mkhitaryan, just because I was listening to, I think it was a Totally Football show, and one of the guys on there
made for a second that you were listening to Mars and he changed your mind. That would be probably
the song changed his mind.
Let's move on before it gets nasty. I think no, I was listening to I think it was a Totally Football show, and they made the point that Mkhitaryan's a player who likes space, and he thrives in space, and he got an absolute bucket load of that against Everton, and it was great for him. Up against Tottenham and Man City, he's not going to get that. They're going to hound Arsenal. There's not going to be any space. I think a player like Ramsey would probably be a bit better suited making late breaks into the box, whereas Mkhitaryan I think needs a little bit more room. So yeah, I'd probably go for Ramsey if it was a short-term thought. But I'm with you, Stag. I'm probably not going to bring him in at the moment.
Yeah, the easiest way of doing it, I shouldn't have bothered even doing the big debate. It's I own Mkhitaryan, so Ramsey is the one to go for everyone. Just the Marple curse is in full effect. We're going to move on actually to the preview part of the show. And Mars, you're actually up first with Spurs versus Arsenal. So you've pretty much boxed off the Arsenal coverage, but you can give us your take on this one.
Yeah, probably potentially game of the weekend, the first game. London derby, anything can happen. I'm expecting high scoring game with few dives from Ali and Kane. I'm not over it. No, I am over it. He did dive though. And if you've got Kane, Ali, any of the Spurs players, you play them in this game. Kane is potential captain potential as well. He loves scoring against Arsenal. And if you have any of your Arsenal forwards, absolutely you play them. This could easily be a high scoring game.
Yep, Kane, of course, boyhood gooner. Stag, move on to Everton versus Crystal Palace. And we saw your notes. You put up a tweet on an image on Twitter earlier on with showing your podcast preparation notes. So let's see what gems followed that note.
Do you know, I actually wrote that note just before I went into a lecture. I was like, I have enough time to put up a tweet, but I don't have enough time to do the notes. So I'll just put up the tweet now for the lads, and I'll do the preview later. So don't expect much here. Okay, so Everton, we've kind of touched upon them earlier. So I'm at risk of going over myself again here, but I'll quickly fly through it. Look, they played a 3-man defence against Everton the other day, or against Arsenal the other day, and it completely and utterly backfired. They had 3 tackles in the whole entire first half. Mangala had a bad debut. Allardyce called his whole entire team pathetic. Now, and as we've said, he's basically admitted that their season is wrapped up. Now, you're looking at their squad and you've to kind of maybe play the psychological card to try and see, like, what do these guys have to play for? Jagielka, Williams, Baines, Rooney, they're all on the way down. They're on decline. Are they going, like, what's next for them? Like, maybe this is a last hurrah for some of those players. Schneiderlin and Morales, they've kind of had weird seasons. Is Morales even at the club at the moment? I don't think he is, but Schneiderlin is in particular kind of looking like someone who'll leave the club at the end of the season if he doesn't really perk up. Niasse is kind of in the same boat as well if he's given a chance. But look, their season is over. They're on 31 points. There's probably nothing to get from them except maybe Theo, and they're guaranteed to play in the blank game week 31. So that's Everton really boxed off. I think, could they beat Crystal Palace? Maybe. I watched some of their game on Sunday. Sacco came on at half time after Kelly went off injured, and that bodes well for their clean sheet potential. Milijevic, obviously brilliant value enabler. He's on penalties. He scored again last weekend. He was on, was it your bench, Peter? Yeah, causing a lot of people pain there, Milijevic, but still great value enabler. MacArthur is even cheaper, and he's actually doing okay in terms of his like underlying stats without, actually scoring anything, unfortunately for me, because he's currently in my squad. Zaha, amazing to watch, but like just the finished product isn't coming with him at the moment, even though kind of does actually get decent shots on every so often. Look, they would improve an awful lot if Benteke could buy a goal, but he just can't right now. He had a one-on-one there against Darlow the other day, and that kind of said enough about where his head is. So overall, I think I'd be steering clear of Palace players too. Look, they're likely to play in blank gaming 31 because we're not expecting Huddersfield to overcome both Birmingham and Man United. I think they're doing well right now against Birmingham, so they probably will do that, but they probably won't beat Man United. So I wouldn't be rushing to get the players in, but if you have them, I'd play both sides.
Huddersfield just won, by the way.
Oh, it's confirmed. They finished it. Okay, yeah. I saw they'd scored their third, so I was like, they're probably going to win that game. So yeah, cool. There you go. They probably won't beat Man United anyway, so they're likely to play that game in 31.
Good stuff. And of course, one thing with Zaha, I saw during the week, I think Ben Dinnery put up, I think he's going to be out for a number of weeks anyway, for quite a period with an injury. Really? So I think that'll affect.
That totally passed me by. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. These things happen. Crystal Palace is an easy team to take your eye off at this point.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, no, thanks a million for that, Stag. So, Pete, your first preview game is Stoke versus Brighton. We didn't exactly start you off with a cracker, but give us your FPL preview on this one.
I'm not going to look to bring in any players from either of these teams. We touched upon Stoke earlier. They do have the advantage of having that game in game week 31, I suppose their fixtures before then, Brighton at home, Leicester away, Southampton away, Man City at home. That doesn't really fill me with too much confidence as well. If you consider, in their last 6 games, they've only scored 3 goals and they've conceded 11. There's not really much going on there. I think they showed a bit of promise when they played Huddersfield. From an attacking perspective, it looked quite dynamic, and a lot of pace in the side. There's real kind of an injection of impetus almost. But it was Huddersfield. I mean, Huddersfield are not very good at the moment at all. They're an absolute freefall. I just think I can't see any real reason for wanting to bring any Stoke players in. I do have Bauer at the moment in my defence, so I'll keep him there. I think that's fine. He's a little bit of an attacking threat, and he's quite a good budget option. Mars, you mentioned Shaqiri earlier. I think he's an okay option. I think in the last 4 games he's had 7 shots on target, which is the 3rd highest amongst midfielders. So there's definitely potential there. But I suppose beyond Shaqiri's the only one I would consider bringing in at this point, but I'm not going to. I think there's probably better options around. I think from Brighton's perspective, they're almost certainly going to blank in game week 31. And I mean, even if they didn't, they'd be playing Man City anyway. So yeah, how much you want to go near that is a totally different question. Their fixtures going up to that. They do have Arsenal. They're away at Everton. They're home against Swansea, but Swansea are a bit resurgent at the moment as well. They look like they could be okay. Again, form's not bad. They won at the weekend, but that was coming off the back of quite a few a winless run of quite a few games, I think, as well. I just think there's better options than both of these teams around. There isn't any players jumping out on the Brighton team, and only really Shaqiri on the Stoke side is jumping out at me as potentially an option. So I'm probably going to give a pass on this game.
No love for Chopstick or the Welsh Pirlo?
No, like I say, 3 goals in the last 6 games. It's everyone talks about Choupo-Moting as a really good option. Juve as well up front, but the fact is they're not putting the ball in the back of a net. They're not. They don't seem to be dynamic enough.
They don't really have enough. They don't have enough firepower. They don't seem to score enough goals to have a whole lot of value in them. Now Shaqiri is definitely. He seems to be a bit of a streaky player. So when he is on form, he's on all the set pieces and all that. So when they do score, he's always kind of involved in it.
I think one thing I would say is you're looking at the other teams down the bottom. They're all of them are going to have to roll their socks up and try and go on a bit of a run. Swansea seem to be getting their act together quite nicely at the moment. Palace are a bit they're tough to beat at the moment. Southampton have got themselves into a bit of a rhythm. They haven't lost 4 games either. Newcastle are sliding, I think, a little bit. Huddersfield are absolutely sliding on their way out of the division. West Brom don't look particularly good either. Stoke, they're still going to have to do something, right? They're still going to have to put an effort in to try and stay in the division. They don't want to just stay up by default, and there's not enough teams down there who are completely out of the equation for them to start relaxing and just taking a foot off the gas. So they're going to have to do something. So that's the one thing I'd say in their favour is you look around their team, players like Joe Allen, you think they're really going to want to do something in the next few games, and they're really going to be trying hard. So that's one thing I think in their favour, but it's a small thing.
They're not going to be on the beach because there is no beach in Stoke.
Not yet.
Mars, Swansea versus Burnley is the next one up. Not much of a fixture, but
I don't know. This one? I don't know. Tammy Abraham brace, Nathan Dyer brace, Carl Newton scored, Wayne Ratcliffe scored, Tom Carroll scored, Daniel James, I don't even know who he is, he scored. Go rip your team apart and get all the Swansea players in. They just won 8-1 against who did they play?
Notts County.
Who did they play? Notts County. Yeah. I wasn't just.
I was just naming players.
No.
Yeah. I didn't know where he was going there.
I was like, is this going to all culminate with a Sam Clucas joke about his celebration a few weeks ago? All right.
Sam Clucas did he even play? He didn't even play. Yeah, he did play. He got a yellow card. So don't get Sam Clucas in. Get everybody else in. Yeah, I mean, listen, I really like their new manager. He's actually quite funny when he said when one swan falls down, another flies. So going by what he's saying, Boney's injured for a long time, so Tammy Abraham could become an option now. He's even got Carroll scoring. and Carl Norton scoring. So, they're playing at home against Burnley. Swansea at home are quite strong. And I think they'll go attacking. And I think if you have their players, you play them in this game. But at the same time, it is Burnley and they're quite strong defensively. Pope was actually my third highest scorer, which was annoying because he was playing my captain, so I wish he wasn't. And then if you have their players, you play. If you have a Pope, most of us have Pope, and few have Burnley defenders. You play them because they are. It's one of those games that can be a home win or a 0-0. I don't see much from Burnley, to be honest, away from home. But then again, it's Swansea, and Gudmundsson is one guy that we should give a shout out to. A few of the guys on Twitter actually came up with his stats. Stag, I believe you were one of them, and I think Poker player was. Yeah. And our friend Poker was also another one, and he brought him in, and he was really happy when he scored against Burnley. Against City. So he's one of the players that you could bring for Burnley, but apart from that, not much around, to be honest. And I was joking, don't rip your team up just for Swansea, but if you have their players, you do play them.
Stuff, Maris. Stag, you're next up with West Ham versus Watford. So are we going to see, is this a Watford resurgence coming?
Well, I think it's just a West Ham collapse, isn't it? Like their good players are injured. They're likely not to play in the double game week as well that's coming up. So really, from an FPL point of view, West Ham have kind of just dropped into irrelevance again all of a sudden after being really the flavour of the month for a few weeks around the double game week and in its aftermath when Arnautovic and Lanzini were ripping things up for a few weeks. So we'll just kind of go straight across to Watford, really. And for me, the only player that really sticks out based on what I've seen, which I admit hasn't been everything, is Deulofeu. At 6 million, he's caught the eye. He's got a goal and an assist against Chelsea. That was all 4 shots and 1 shot on target, 4 key passes as well against the Blues, and then 3 key passes as well in this game against Stoke. Those are both pretty decent returns for a player in that price bracket. So, and they're 100% playing in game week 31, which makes them very much viable for your transfers. As I said, then there's nobody else scoring regularly enough to excite at the moment. What about the Core?
What do you think of him?
He's cheaper, isn't he? I guess that's about the only thing that's on his side. But he hasn't, his scoring has kind of dropped off again, has it not? Would I be right in saying that?
He assisted a couple of the goals. He had a great game against Chelsea. I agree with you. But one more chat. I don't know if Gerrard's going to get banned or not. I didn't see it, but I heard it was a dive, and I don't know when the panel makes their decision. But he could potentially get a 2-match ban.
Well, okay, that definitely isn't good. But
potentially,
that is horrendous.
He might not.
Yeah, but look, as you say there, Decore did get his 2 assists the other night. I always get a little bit hesitant when the assists kind of come in games like that, especially when, you score 3 goals in 10 minutes when a team completely collapses at the last minute. But his returns have been relatively consistent throughout the season, especially for a player who's 5.3 million. So he's an option. I wouldn't be rushing to get a load of these players into your team or anything. I don't think they're likely to keep too many clean sheets either. But that said, if you wanted a cheap enabler and for whatever reason you didn't want Millie or the other options, then yeah, sure, Watford player. But overall, I wouldn't be too excited about Watford versus West Ham.
Good stuff. Thanks, Stag. Pete, you're next up with a good game, one of the good games game week, Man City versus Leicester. It's the even kickoff on the Saturday. What's your thoughts on Leicester? A bit of a kind of strange one for me to get my head around. I'm not really sure. Vardy seems to be, as soon as we're back to the stage where if you see Leicester have scored, as when you open up the app, who you're going to see has scored, it's going to be Jamie Vardy. But what's your thoughts on this one from an FPL point of view?
I think you're right. I think it looks like a good game. Definitely one I think to tune in for. Just, I suppose, really just to see how focused Leicester are at the moment, because that's for me is the big question mark hanging over Leicester, and the whole Riyad Mahrez thing is, their season's practically over now. I think Leicester, from a Premier League perspective anyway, they're not going to get relegated, and then we're probably not going to get into Europe either. So they've got, the Mahrez thing must be unsettling for everybody. You've got your best player who's basically on strike. You've got a club who are unwilling to let him go. the players, maybe starting to feel a bit stagnant there. That's probably going to have an impact on the dressing room. Whether it galvanises everybody or whether it knocks them out, it's really too early to say. And I think that's how they approach the Man City game, whether they really go for it, really try and prove something, really try to show Mahrez that actually they can compete with Man City, who he wanted to go to, is another question. I suppose, one player who was shouted out on Match of the Day is Diabate, who's just joined them. He looked really lively, very direct, getting plenty of shots in. I know they drew against Swansea, but they still have plenty of shots on goal from decent positions as well. So he at 5 million as a forward, I think he's definitely one to watch. I'd be really interested to see how he settles, because Iheanacho hasn't set the world on fire. Okazaki's in and out of the team. You've got Vardy up front basically by himself, and without Mahrez, they've got Albrighton admittedly, but that kind of direct run-in they've potentially lost from maybe a slightly deeper position. They've obviously got Vardy in the team who can do that direct run-in as well, but in the way they like to play, it looks like Diabate might slot in. So for me, he's definitely somebody to keep an eye on. I think from Man City's perspective, seriously, if you listen to this podcast and you don't know about the Man City assets, then something's definitely amiss there. We all know about Sterling, we all know about Aguero, we all know about Kevin De Bruyne and any number of players there. The new defender, Laporte, looks really good. I think he's potentially a bonus point magnet as well, given his range of passing and the accuracy of it as well. But he didn't start at the weekend, so I think that's really the thing with Man City at this point. With the Champions League kicking back off again soon, is rotation's going to start kicking in heavily, especially the next few weeks. If they wrap up the title relatively soon, then we're going to see heavier rotation. I think potentially heavier rotation as well. Gabriel Jesus is coming back, so that might affect Aguero's pitch time. So as bizarre as it sounds for a team who is as good as they are, I've got Aguero and I've got Sterling. I'm not looking at bringing any others in at the moment, I don't think, just because we're not quite sure what's going to happen with them now. Their priorities might start moving about a bit, as I've already said. So again, from a defensive perspective, I think they potentially now look a little bit more solid if Laporte plays. But so there's potentially an argument there for bringing in a defender and racking up the clean sheets. But most people have got Otamendi anyway. So whether he's a better option than whether Laporte is a better option than Otamendi, again, you got John Stones in there as well. The rotation thing's weighing heavily on my mind with Man City, and they've definitely got some blanks coming up as well. Almost certainly going to have some blanks coming up as well. So don't necessarily bring anybody in, I think, as at this point. But by all means, don't go selling the players you've got. They're still premium assets.
Thanks a million, Pete. We will move on to Sunday, which, Mars, you're up on this one now. This will be very short and sweet. Huddersfield versus Bournemouth. We talked earlier on about these assets, in particular Huddersfield. But tell us, what do you think we can make of this one?
Did Lussell get 10 points last game week? I'm pretty sure he did. So I think I actually enjoy watching Bournemouth away from home more than home. And I think if you have Wilson, you keep him and you play him in this game, because Huddersfield are struggling. I think any Bournemouth attacker that you have should play in that game, and their defenders if you've got them. As for Huddersfield, no, I wouldn't. If you have a defender, they playing at home. Maybe if you have Lussell, he did save a penalty from Sanchez, so but apart from that, maybe Moy, if you have him, he could do something. But at the moment, Huddersfield don't impress me. They struggled against Liverpool, they struggled against United, and I can only see them going one way.
Yeah, if you have Moy, you probably have stopped playing around December, or around September, should I say. But, the Stag, Newcastle versus Man United is the next one. I lined them up perfectly to give you the Man United game, because I'm that kind of guy.
You're such a nice guy, man. Such a nice guy. Yeah, Newcastle avoid their defenders. Just absolutely nope. For the rest of their team, really, you're just looking at Kennedy. I think as it stands right now, 2 assists in 2 games with definitely underperforming strikers ahead of him. You'd hope he'll improve when Slimani gets into that team. But even with bad fixtures,
Tsunami now would do some damage up front, I would say.
A Tsunami would do big damage up front. A Salami wouldn't, but Slimani might. So they should improve with him coming in. I would hope so anyway. So look, good value, but bad fixtures basically is what Kennedy is. He's very aggressive in his attacking. He's a good enabler. And they won't play in the blank game week though, because Spurs would just have to dodge a few cup sets to have it postponed. As for Man United, look, the Spurs result was a massive knock of confidence for their defence. But David De Gea is still in the race, is still in the lead actually, for the Golden Glove, such as the way United's defence has been performing all season. And I can't imagine that Jones is going to stay dropped. So for all those owners, I wouldn't get too panicked. Alexis is kind of the big talking point in Manchester United's midfield. He had the most shots, most tackles, most dribbles, and he was dispossessed the most times of all Man United players on the pitch. I think he was the most shots and most tackles of all players on the pitch, full stop, the other day, which is pretty impressive for a midfielder stroke forward. Like, while he was playing, he was kind of interesting that he actually started off on the left wing, which I didn't anticipate, to be honest. I thought he'd just start centrally straight away after what had happened against Spurs. But as the game went on, he moved inside and actually was kind of playing as like a central striker towards the end of it. And when Mourinho was asked about that afterward, he actually said that this movement of position was the objective. That was the one word that he used to describe it, which is kind of interesting. So I think that if you have Alexis, definitely hold on to him. And I would even be considering captaining him again, even after last week's kerfuffle, when he had it, because he had 6 shots, he had 3 key passes, he won 7 free kicks, he took the penalty, he won the penalty, scored it. On the second.
Is he the most selfish?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, probably, yeah.
Did you see what Theo said about?
No, I didn't. No.
So he was saying that at Arsenal he would get really childish and competitive, even in training, where if it doesn't go his way, he will start mourning, and they had to sell him. I thought it was fake to begin with, but then I'd seen it retweeted quite a few times, and it seemed quite genuine that they didn't like at Arsenal. He always had a tantrum if it didn't go his way, and he was quite selfish.
Yeah, no, and I've seen similar things about Aaron Ramsey being absolutely delighted to see him go as well. I can't remember where I read that, but apparently there was a lot of animosity between those two players as well. I think though, sorry Arsenal fans, but I think a player with the drive and just insane commitment that Alexis has maybe fits into the United squad a little bit better than the Arsenal squad. Insert all the Arsenal fan TV quotes from over the years to kind of back up that point. But I'll be keeping Alexis anyway, since he's in my squad for Newcastle, Chelsea, Palace and Liverpool. But I wouldn't go destroying your squad and wasting free transfers to get him in nonetheless, because at the end of the day there's some serious options in midfield without having to go and get him in. Lingard is probably the only other person I'd be looking at in their midfield. His returns have dropped, but the chances are coming to him still. I'd probably be looking to get rid of him at some point, but not before the Newcastle game. So I'd be holding on one more week if you do have him. You can't be sure of all the players' game time other than Pogba. I think he'll be back in next time. I can't see Mourinho being able to get away with dropping him twice in a row. Lukaku, no, too expensive. Much bigger options to go for up there if you are spending money on strikers. And that's Man United in a nutshell.
So Stag, would you keep Lingard then? You said because I'm considering shifting him for Theo.
Well, if you can get him, if you have that sort of budget, yeah, I could see what you're doing, because look, that is a positive move for the double game week or the blank game week that's coming. Whilst for me, I'm trying to have 2 free transfers for the week after this one, because I think it's just a prudent week to just hold your free transfer, to be honest. I think that'll probably come up in the listener's question later if I remember my mentions on Twitter earlier. But yep. I'll be holding my transfer and keeping Lingard personally.
Okay.
Yep. Me too. Lingard, holding on to him for another week anyway.
I'm selling him. Sorry, I'm selling him now.
As I said it, and then I went, oh God, totally walked into it. But Pete, Southampton versus Liverpool. What's your thoughts on this one? Salah. Of course, this is Liverpool against Liverpool B.
Yeah, the Liverpool development squad. against Liverpool. I like this game. From an FPL perspective, there's a lot of good options here, I think. Southampton, they've been sort of under the cosh, I suppose, most of the season, for, accused of being boring and, fans getting frustrated, but they're unbeaten in 4 now. They won their last game, and they just seem like they might be starting to get it together a little bit. And I think the one option that really sticks out for me is everybody's favourite pre-season player was James Ward-Prowse. He's got run in the team at the moment. He's on set pieces. His deliveries look absolutely fantastic, and he scored a really good free kick at the weekend. I think if you're looking at investing in Southampton, and let's be honest, they've got some pretty good fixtures as well. I mean, after the Liverpool game, away at Burnley, home against Stoke, away to Newcastle, away to Swansea, away to West Ham. So there's a few away games in there, and the Swansea one will probably be postponed because it's game week 31, and I think Swansea have to overcome, who is it? Let me have a quick look. Sheffield Wednesday. So maybe not as simple as it sounds. In fact, it's definitely not as simple as it sounds. So
Carvajal's ex-team there, the crowd that sacked him just before Christmas.
Good point.
Can't see him losing that game. No way.
There's a narrative there, isn't there?
There's a real narrative there. Yeah.
Even so, I think I'm not going to shy. If I see a Southampton player I like in the next couple of weeks, I'm not going to shy away from bringing them in at this point. I don't think Ward-Prowse is definitely an enabler. I'm looking at certainly for the midfield. Liverpool is the team I'm going to be going all in on in the next few weeks. So they definitely don't have any blanks, and they've got some really good fixtures. So away at Southampton, home to West Ham, home to Newcastle, away to Man United, home to Watford, away to Crystal Palace. So on paper, there's some really good fixtures there. I mean, even the Man United away game, that's Man United against Liverpool is one of those fixtures where really anything could happen, and both teams are going to go for it. It'll be blood and thunder. There might be goals in it. Mourinho might shut it down, but given they're at home, that may not happen. So, and given Liverpool don't have a blank, given how good they look on the pitch at the moment at both ends, I thought they were defensively pretty good against Spurs. I know they conceded 2 goals and gave away 2 absolute stonewall penalties as well. Just pause to see if there's a reaction. Okay.
Let me just check with my assistant. 1 second. I'm not sure. Can we ask the video guy, please?
So while you're taking your 30 seconds to talk to the video guy there, we'll all just wait, will we? It's like, VR. Yeah. But actually, wasn't it
realistic?
Yeah, 30, no, that wasn't realistic enough. 5 minutes is probably more realistic. Yeah.
But I think, they did look defensively pretty good, and they kept Spurs' chances to a minimum. There was nothing they could have done about the Wanyama goal, I think at least one of those was definitely a penalty. I think Liverpool look really good at both ends of the pitch at the moment, and considering the fixtures, considering they don't have a blank, I think in my next couple of transfers, I'm probably going to be bringing in Liverpool players to make sure I've got 3 moving up to my wild card in game week probably 33. Everybody's got Salah. If you don't get him in, he's very, very, very good. I think at the back, I really like the look of Robertson. I say I like the look of him. I thought he was rubbish against Spurs, but he's definitely got potential for FPL points. And he's quite cheap as well, and there's definitely potential for clean sheets there. Virgil van Dijk, I think, obviously has definitely got potential at both ends of the pitch as well. Up front, Firmino, obviously, Mane, obviously, those guys are always going to be getting to threatening position. So if your budget can stretch there, if you can get to them, do so. And again, my advice is before blank game week 31 or as soon as possible, really try and get 3 Liverpool players in.
Mars, move on to the final one, which is Monday Night Football, Chelsea versus West Brom. So as Stag mentioned earlier on, the Chelsea managers don't like facing West Brom because it tends to be the death knell for their managerial career. But what's your hopes and dreams for these guys on Monday Night Football?
West Brom winner. Conte gets sacked. Sturridge scores the winner. That's what's going to happen, maybe. I think Chelsea will come back strong. I don't understand why Padru decided to drop Rodriguez suddenly. I know Sturridge is a good player, and I know he's a big name. But to be honest, Rodriguez has been on fire, so that was a silly mistake. And if you have him, I can see Rodriguez coming back in, so don't sell him. But if you have your Chelsea players, I know it's been that kind of game week, but Hazard got a goal. You keep them, you play them. I think Alonso will be back. I think they are a strong potential for a clean sheet. And if you have West Brom players, I would start Rodriguez just because he's been doing well. And if you have him, you most likely have like you play 3-4-3. Apart from that, their defenders I would bench, although they're quite expensive. So if you have them, you probably have weaker defenders around them. But I do expect Chelsea to come back strong and win.
Thanks a million, Mars. That's the end of our preview, lads. So we'll move on to the listener questions. We got a load in this week, so thanks a million to everyone who sent them in. We'll do rapid fire on it because we don't have much time, but we want to get through as many of them as we can. Maybe come to you first, Stag, on this one. Okay, there's one came in from Tala Nadim. Asked Vardy, Lingard, Cuco, Martina, which one of those three to start in game week 27? Would you be going for Vardy?
Okay, Vardy has to start. Playing at it's Man City. He always scores in big games. Lingard, I've already backed up, so I'm starting him. My choice then is Cuco, Martina, and who?
No, that was the last one. Cuco Martina is the third one.
Was there not four players, no? Or was it not four? Was it four? Okay, I'm just starting the two attacking players then. Although Everton at home to Palace. No, I'm going to go with the attacking players. No, I'm going to stick to that. The attacking players.
Yeah, I'd probably go Vardy, then Lingard in that order, probably. But because Vardy is always likely to score, pop up with a goal, and you'll be cursing yourself if you have him on the bench. Thanks a million, Stag. Move on to maybe come to Mars with one here from Stephen Toomey. Asked a question. Where are we here? I see Peter put up a question earlier on, or put up a post, something to do with space program or SpaceX. Actually, SpaceX. Very cool.
Yeah. They launched their Falcon Heavy rocket tonight. It's the most powerful rocket in the world, and test flight, and it went off without a hitch. Very impressive.
Excellent. I didn't actually. We should probably be watching that and talking about that, something intelligent as opposed to fantasy football, lads. But Stephen Toomey was asking best shout out for a fifth midfielder, 5.5 or less. Mars, you can have this one. He mentions Doucouré, Albrighton, Milo. Anyone else?
WordPress, what's he on? I think he's between 5 and 5.5, if I'm not mistaken. Unless you want to go really cheap and save money and go somewhere else, you can go MacArthur. He's playing games for Palace. Klukas, Swansea, 4.7. Maybe Ibe from Bournemouth, but none of these really, are gonna break the record for your team. But the core out of the three that he mentioned, and then maybe Albrighton because Leicester have a good run.
Don't fancy Bakayoko? I got so much grief earlier in the season because I bought him in on a punt. This is about.
I remember that you were on the pod.
Game week 10. Yeah. I took a punt on it, and I still get grief for that now. Rightly so, I suppose. It was a stupid.
Bakayoko was your punt, and Richard Kenny, of course, is Randinho. So he definitely has had the better of the two punts. But
Absolutely.
Thanks for reminding me, because we'll have to start loading on the grief for you now as well. So good to pick the scab off these things, Pete, FBL Minnow was asking, what do you think about rolling over the free transfer this game week due to the 2-week gap until game week 28 versus jumping on or off the price rises and fallers? So basically banking the transfer. I think it's a good idea. What do you think?
It really depends on your team. It depends. what your fixtures look like this week. If you are in danger of losing a load of value in your team, that's a different conversation. But I mean, the thing about team value you need to remember as well is if a player drops by 0.1, if they'd already risen by 0.1 from what you bought them, you're not going to lose any more value out of it. Their selling value will remain the same for you. So that's always something to consider. And it's a little bugbear of mine when people talk about team value. Actually, team value isn't the important thing. It's the selling value that's the important bit. But yeah, it's a really difficult question to answer in a vacuum. It depends on your team. I'm always in favour. If I can roll a transfer, I will, because I think you've got a lot more freedom with 2 transfers than you do with 1, because you can fundamentally restructure your team. You can take out an expensive striker and a cheap midfielder, and then bring in an expensive midfielder and a cheap striker. Whereas in isolation in 1 week, you can't. It's more difficult to do that without going in with the 2 cheap players first. So yeah, I guess if you can roll your transfer, do so. But again, to take a view, if you're looking at your team and you're thinking there's only 7 or 8 players that have got potential this week, then make the transfer. If you think you've got 12 or 13 who could get points, then yeah, roll it, definitely.
Stag, back to you on Mahutsu was asking, fixture turn after next game week for Spurs has me considering Babies in soon, and he's obviously worth the risk, but is Rose that small of a threat to his starts? So what's your thoughts on Babies?
The thing with Spurs is that you're kind of worried about the Champions League and how that brings the rotation into kind of question again, more so than it has been in recent weeks, when Babies has been pretty reliable and almost back to the not quite the early season levels, of course, but has definitely been much more assured than usual. Look, at 5.5, he's more expensive than Kieran Trippier, who seems a lot more nailed on of late. Would I be correct in saying that, everybody? I think I am.
No, I don't think so. I think Ori is the one who's a bit more nailed from those two.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, I was. Yeah, okay. Trippier started the last 2, played 90 in the last 2 Premier League games. But okay, you see, look, Babies, okay, if we're saying that, then Babies is probably the most assured of them all, with Rose a kind of a spectre looming in the dark. I just avoid both of them and just pay the extra 0.5 if I wanted to be sure and get Vertonghen, personally.
I think if you look at the Spurs, yeah, how they're structured, Aurier, I think, plays a lot more attacking. And they've kind of got this asymmetrical lineup, because you've got Eriksen out on the sort of quote unquote right wing, but his natural instinct is to drift inside, and Aurier goes up behind, goes up on the overlap, and he's very high up the pitch a lot of the time, Aurier. Whereas Davis, I think, is the more defensive of Davis and Rose. Yeah, and that effectively, because he's got Son ahead of him as well. Son will he will come inside, but he can hit the touchline a bit more, so he can stay out a bit wider. So Davis doesn't have to get forward as much. So if there's a choice between the two, just from when I've seen Spurs and the impression I get of their team, I'd say Davis is probably slightly more nailed than Rose at the moment, just because Rose is much more attacking. Now, if you've got Eriksen starting on the left and drifting inside, then Rose absolutely is probably the better option, because he's going to be far more attacking. But that's assuming you've got a right back then, or a right wing back who can tuck in and make 3 at the back alongside Sanchez and Vertonghen. If I had to put money on it between now and the rest of the season, I'd say that Aurier is going to start more than Trippier, and I'd say Davis is going to start more than Rose. But that's kind of just my reading of it. So
yeah, I'm not missing anything big with Rose, am I? In that he hasn't played at all really in recent weeks, in the Premier League at least. That's like, there wasn't some big injury or anything going on there. I don't think there was.
I don't think so. I think he's just struggled to get back into it after his injury earlier in the season, because Davis has come in and done a really good job, and he will get attacking returns. Davis, he's still expected to do that attacking part, but I don't think his starting position is as advanced as what goes on the right side.
Yeah, certainly, yeah, definitely that.
You had one thing actually you referenced on Twitter, we'll give a shout out, was Michael Cox at ESPN. You wrote, you replied to that question, Pete, saying that he wrote a piece on Spurs' balance, and it might be worth checking out. So listeners can check that one out. Mars, John G. Grifters United was asking, what's the biggest loss in value you'd take to move another player in? He's had Otamendi all season, so he's at least 0.4 or 0.5 profit tied up in him. Or would you view that he has to be kept even now that the form has dipped? When I saw an Otamendi question, I knew I had to give it to you anyway, buddy.
I would keep Otamendi. I think Pete touched on it earlier. They're quite strong with Laporte at the back now again. But this question about losing value, I go back to Pete's point again, and I agree. It's about the selling value. How much you're gonna. For me, if you want a player, you go and get him, and you worry about team value later. That's my personal opinion. I know that the selling value will become essential when it's about the wild card. I do watch price rises and price drops, but I will not let it be the only decision that makes me bring a player in or to sell him, unless I'm on wild card, just to try and catch price rises. So yeah, I mean, to answer the question, you keep Otamendi for now, unless you're going really low and then spending money somewhere else to upgrade some, to a weak midfielder or a forward. If you're going like for like, Otamendi to another big player, just keep Otamendi.
Wait a minute. And so there's always them kind of car crash little stories that give me a chuckle every time I see them. Anyway, at least somebody else is having a bit of a disaster as well as myself, But yeah, we have here. What was the next one? Actually, we have now. It's a kind of an Arsenal question again. To do with double up on the Arsenal midfield after game week 29. This is from Stephen Toomey. Again, so I'll give this one, I guess, to yourself, Pete. Double up on the Arsenal midfield after game week 29, or look at Boomerang for the double game week with Mickey or Ramsey.
It's an interesting question. I mean, yeah, we sort of touched on it earlier, didn't we? Arsenal got two pretty tough fixtures coming up, but after that, you've got Brighton away, Watford at home, Leicester away, which will probably be, will that be postponed?
Yeah, so it's based on Leicester beating Sheffield United.
Yeah, so Sheffield United are no slouches though. I think that they're a decent team, so that was still a little bit in the balance, I think. But when I got Stoke at home, and is it worth doubling up on them? Yeah, for those, for 3 out of those 4 game weeks where one of them is going to be blank. If you're going to double up on them and there is a blank, then that's 2 players immediately consigned to your bench. Unless you're going to, transfer them out and then retransfer them back in again. But I'm not a pretty big fan of, hokey cokies. Certainly not for, a double Arsenal midfield in that instance. I'm not sure that's worth it, to be honest. I'm not sure I would double up on Arsenal midfield after game week 29.
Yeah, because you're doubling up. I guess it's who you're going to be taking out for him. You're probably taking out to get a double up. You're probably taking out Sterling maybe, or Sterling, Salah, any number of those big midfielders. And we've got to remember as well. I mean, Arsenal do look like they're playing with a bit more freedom. They absolutely. They ripped to pieces Crystal Palace, and they also ripped apart Everton as well. But they're not going to continuously come up against teams who defend as badly as those 2 teams did. And actually, at home, they look really good. But away, maybe not so much. So the Brighton away game, I don't think is an absolute shoo-in. If the Leicester game goes ahead, that's definitely not a shoo-in either. Watford at home, Stoke at home, you can see him putting goals in there, but I don't think it's worth a double up at this point. I think but that lineup still needs to settle a little bit. They still need to work out what they want to do with Lacazette. They still want to work out how they integrate Wilshere into it alongside Ramsey and all the other players as well. It's a little bit uncertain at this point. Thanks a million, Pete. At FPL_Alexis, this one's just a quick answer basically. So I'll give it to Stag. I won't give it to Mars. But it's basically asking to Aubameyang or not to Aubameyang. What I kind of want to change this around a little bit to Stag would be like, which forwards would you, say if you're thinking to get in Aubameyang, which forwards would you rank him over now? Like you have Aguero, Kane, Where would Aubameyang come in your kind of reckoning for the forwards you want to have in your FPL lineup?
Okay, right. So I'm going to just call Aguero and Kane a joint first rather than kind of like idly trying to make a decision between the two. I think you need them both. Yeah. Firmino it's definitely third, like just in terms of just value for production, and then in terms of the fact that like we're all talking about tripling up on Liverpool players, with this blank game week coming up. So Firmino's in third just for a variety of reasons there. Would I put Lukaku ahead of Aubameyang? No, I wouldn't. So I'd probably put him fourth. I can't. Am I missing any serious players in between? I wouldn't. I'm not.
Yeah, because Morata would be one that you're thinking
I'm not rating Morata here. I'm not really bringing Giroud into it yet because we don't know enough about them. I'm not taking Jesus into it because he's still out for too long. Yeah. I'm going to go.
What about Vardy?
No, not in the post. I'm going to call this the post Mahrez phase already because I just can't see how that can continue. So no, like as we kind of said, Leicester season's over. I think that's the end of the good run that Vardy may or may not have had. Yeah, I'm going to go fourth.
Good stuff. Here, guys, that's brilliant. That's all the time we got for our listener questions because we're getting on and we all need our beauty sleep at our age, other than Stag, of course.
I'm an hour ahead. That's allowing for age.
Lads, we're on to the Barlow and Baldwin captain picks section of the show where we're going to look at our captain picks for Game Week 27. For new listeners, the Barlow, of course, is the boring, safe captain pick, and the Baldwin is the risky pick. So, Pete, come to you first on it. Give me your Barlow.
Safe pick, Aguero. Yeah, just home game and the fact he's Sergio Aguero. I mean, Harry Kane's got a good record against Arsenal, so that's tempting. And obviously Mo Salah as well, away at Southampton. Yeah, both those players got goals in them. But I think home match for City. Against Leicester again. Everything we spoke about earlier. Don't know whether they're going to show up or not. What their motivation is now. That's probably I'll probably end up putting it on Aguero. Yeah.
If I had Kane, Aguero and Salah, it would be a difficult decision. But I probably would actually go Salah even. But unfortunately I don't. But Mars, tell me your one. Who's your Barlow? You sticking with Kuhn or you haven't captained Salah this season? But
I captained him once and he got an assist. That was it. I'm sticking with Aguero. 5:30 kickoff, open game.
Good stuff. And Stag, you're going to give us is it going to be a full house of picks for Aguero as the Barlow?
No, oddly not actually. So I'm one of those people who does have Salah, Kane and Aguero to choose from, and I was actually moving towards Salah purely because the man just can't stop scoring in every game he plays, and just that Southampton game, I'm not too worried about Southampton's defence being too sure of itself. And I was then ranking Kane as my risky Baldwin pick purely because of everyone else choosing every other player, because I think Salah and Aguero are both going to be ahead of Kane, and that's how I'm going to define risky for this week. But with Petr Cech out and his unbelievable record in London derbies, I wouldn't be shirking him either, and I think my armband is sitting on him right now. So yeah, there you go.
But I'm not gonna allow you Kane as a risky pick. Sorry, I'm vetoing that.
I'm redefining the boundaries of risk.
I'll have to come back. I'll come back to him on another one in a minute. He'll be thinking of another one there, Stag, so that he'll keep Mars happy. But
Joshua King.
Pete, Joshua King. You're just saying random names now, aren't you?
No, he scored last week, and he's away at Huddersfield. It's a wonderful thing there.
He's my draft. He's in my draft team, so hopefully alongside Giroud.
Okay.
Good God. But Mars, tell me who's your bold one? Who's your risky pick?
Shaqiri, home to Brighton.
Shaqiri. How low would your rank have to be? I'll set this one up for you for a nice rebound. But how low would your rank have to be to risk captain and Shaqiri this game week instead of Salah, for instance?
Anyone lower than you?
I thought you were actually just going to give my actual number. The rank number.
I can't count over 1 million, so I don't know. I'll just no.
Yeah. Go on.
If you really want to go risky, why not Shaqiri at home to Brighton? You know, everybody's saying that Stoke won't score much, and not many people are going to have him or captain him. So Shaqiri at home.
It certainly qualifies as a risky one anyway. Pete, how about yourself? Who would, if you were feeling, the way I phrased it, I think last time you were on the pod was, if you were feeling a little bit frisky on Saturday morning before the deadline, and you'd been out the night before, and you were kind of going, yeah, I'll throw it on. Who would you throw it on?
You didn't say you didn't say frisky last time. You said if you were chronically hungover, who would you pick?
I rephrased.
I'm similar to what Stag said, actually. I'm going to go Callum Wilson, just because Huddersfield are conceding an absolute shed load of goals, and I think Bournemouth away. Bournemouth playing away. I don't think they've got anything to fear there. Yeah, Callum Wilson.
Yeah, he'll probably do the business. He didn't for me last game week, of course, my captain. But right, lads, that's all we got time for on episode 4 of the Three Amigos FPL show. Thanks a million, guys. Peter Blake, who you can find on Twitter at @MattSafe_FPL. Stag, who you can find at FPL Stag. Mars, who goes by Mars05. And myself, who you can follow at FPL Marple. The show can be followed at 3 Amigos FPL on Twitter and on Facebook. Thanks for listening, sharing and liking the pod. Best of luck in Game Week 27. Booyah!